Hi, it's Lindsay. I'm the Learning Content Manager for Because Learning. I'm here to give you a brief introduction to our 8th grade Science and Math unit. Let's get started. All of our units come aligned with NGS standards. The 8th grade Science and Math unit comes aligned with Physical Science, Engineering, Technology and the Application of Science, Earth and Space Science, as well as some Common Core Mathematics. The NGS standards can be found by clicking on an experiment and scrolling to the bottom and clicking on the experiment guide. The experiment guide contains a lot of information such as a brief overview, a list of materials, pre-work that needs to be completed before your students try the experiment, grade level, vocabulary, and at the bottom it includes the specific NGS standards for that experiment. In addition to the experiment guide, the bottom of each experiment also contains links to troubleshooting tips in a help center in case you get stuck or encounter a problem, and a link to our community discussion where you can post pictures of your students completing the experiment as well as tips or suggestions for future curriculum development. The experiment titled Greenhouse Effect has the students exploring the greenhouse effect using a mason jar and the temperature sensor, and then they determine how it impacts the Earth and the Earth's systems. Satellite data analysis with CODAP is an experiment that uses pre-collected data that has been taken from our sensor board in space and has the students analyzing the data to draw conclusions. There is a worksheet that is included with this experiment to help guide the students through the data analysis. In Exoplanet Detector, the students wire up the luminosity sensor and collect data and use a model to determine how scientists discover exoplanets. Have you ever wondered what makes a chemical reaction endothermic or exothermic? In this experiment, students will mix baking soda and vinegar, as well as yeast and hydrogen peroxide. They will collect data from the temperature sensor and use that data to interpret whether their chemical reaction was endothermic or exothermic. In the experiment titled Will It Conduct, the students will build a circuit using the breadboard and the Arduino, and then they will gather things from around the classroom and test them to see if they conduct electricity. In Sunglasses experiment, students use the luminosity and UV sensors to take data. The students then interpret the data to determine which pair of sunglasses blocks the most visible light as well as the most UV rays. The experiment titled Color Mixing with RGB LED has the students wiring up a red, green, blue LED and experimenting with different ratios of red, green, and blue to see what colors they produce. Crash Test has the students designing a cushion that will dampen the impact of an object when dropped from 3 feet high. The students will collect G-force data from the accelerometer sensor and use it to tell them whether or not their cushion was effective. Car crash barrier testing is an experiment that has the students building a barrier that will absorb shock from an impact of a car rolling down a ramp. The students will use data from the accelerometer to determine whose cushion absorbs the most force from the impact. Sound Waves has the students wiring up a piezo speaker and then using that piezo speaker and the Arduino sketch to create different sounds. Earthquake Simulator has the students building a structure using pipe cleaners and styrofoam balls and then collecting data from the accelerometer on the sensor board to see how well their structure withstands a shake table. Car temperature safety is different than any of the other experiments in this unit because it works best as a classroom demonstration. The students will collect data in a car to see how long it takes before the car reaches 100 degrees Fahrenheit. The lesson titled Heat Absorption has the students asking the question, do different colors absorb different amounts of heat? The students will use a mason jar and different colors of tape or paper, and they will place the sensor board inside and access the temperature data. From there they will interpret if different colors absorb or reflect different amounts of heat. That gives you a brief introduction to our 8th grade Science and Math unit. We recommend before you teach any lesson to your students that you go through the experiment as if you are a student. You wire up the sensor, you collect the data, you answer the questions. That way you'll be able to anticipate where your students may need extra support. We hope you enjoy exploring.